Hey everybody, it's Callous with Callous Invitational 6 Round 3 action. As with all Round 3 matches in this tour, it is lower bracket, so it is an elimination match, and it's going to be Arctic and Astamatitos in this one. What a battle of opposites here. Asta is pushing 30 and is a doctor and is a grown married man in real life, whereas Arctic is 10. I think he's actually 15, but the point is, veteran here who's been around forever, who has been SPL retired for years, at one point was one of the best ADV players in the world, and is absolutely going to go down as one of the best ADVs of all time, versus a player who's very new to the tournament scene, just starting out, just making a name for himself. Likewise, Asta gets invited to this every year, just a shoe-in whenever he wants to play. Arctic on the flip side, unconventional path here, play-ins, that drama, Bruno, that drama. Kind of weird how he got here, but he's here, and these paths have somehow crossed, and it is now time for one of them, whether it's the old pro or the new blood, to eliminate the other. And I mean, the difference between going out here at 1-2 and just a forgettable, disappointing CI versus winning here and being 2-1 and the sky's the limit, it's huge. Round 3 is the make or break round for so many people in this tournament. Can't wait to see who it's going to be here. So let's get into it. Arctic and Asta, game 1, best of 3. Let's go. Arctic's on the on the bottom with a Glalie. Speaking my language. Long-time Glalie advocate here. However, it's not fantastic in Tatar. You really want to catch like lead Zapdos or Mence. This trade is not great unless he has a Dugtrio in the back, which he does. This is actually pretty good. He's going to trade the Glalie and NU for the best poke in the tier, Titar, and he gets a spike down. Glalie's so good. So Arctic with what I would say is an advantage, a small advantage early on. So now they both have a layer of spikes after Skarm spikes up. Asta going with a much more standard team, it looks like. He's a very well-known just Skarm Bliss spammer, which is not an insult or derogatory thing in any way. They're the best combo in the tier for a reason. Good players use them a lot and have success for a reason. Moltres comes in on the second Will-O-Wisp, is immune, obviously, and is going to go straight to Overheat. No flamethrowers or fire blasts here, straight fucking Overheat. 48% to Lax is a huge chunk, and it's just going to immediately boom, but it's going to connect with Skarm, which with non-CB or non-curse boost is not going to kill. It's going to come up well short, doing 75%, and then after lefties, and then protect for more lefties, Skarm is relatively healthy at 37%. But Asta's going to let it go anyway. Apparently does not have a good Gengar switch in. Thunderbolt takes out Skarm. Final spikes count seemingly is going to be 2 beneath the team of Arctic and 1 beneath the team of Asta. So Moltres is going to be the switch into Gar, which really makes it look like he doesn't have a Bliss or he's really afraid of getting it boomed on. I guess it is the latter, since we now see that there is a Bliss. Interesting that he didn't switch that into Gar before, but like I said, must be really afraid of some gimmicky trap or a boom or what have you. Hydro Pump missing here, not a huge deal. And we did see the 20% Ice Beam as well. So here's the Moltres switch into an EQ, which is exactly what you want to come in on if you're Asta. Very well may have HP Grass here, many of them do. And that's what he goes for. It's going to connect with Gar, which doesn't care, but of course there is the threat of that big Overheat. T-Bolt and Overheat, which connects through imperfect accuracy and knocks out Gar, but Moltres punished with a 79% T-Bolt on the way out. Now Dugtrio comes in, threatening Rock Slide. He actually overpredicts and goes Earthquake, should Bliss come in there, but it does not. And now he's just going to let that go as Flygon comes in, which is fine against Earthquake or Rock Slide, so the perfect foil in that situation. Arctic down to just 2 pokes against the 4 from Asta. Gonna have to get there with this Jirachi, it seems. +1 Ice Punch will kill Flygon, so there's a little bit of progress, but he's going to need an immediate crit or para, full para, with what I assume is an electric move against Meta, and it is. And there's the para, full para, exactly what he needed. I always call that people need that, but they never actually get it, but there it is. However, the follow-up Thunder comes up short, even with seemingly a max roll of 51. Earthquake at 1% gets off from Meta, and it's going to be good enough. He explodes there, even though he's faster while parried. No clue why. It was a roar turn from Arctic, awkwardly. but it would not have mattered because even if he had killed the Metagross there, Moltres comes in. We know it is HP Grass, and there's no way out of it for Arctic. So game 1 to the veteran, Astamatitos, and Arctic is going to have to really buckle down and show how good he is. It would be a massive statement if he could rally back against this player in this position in this tournament. That would really, really show you what Arctic's made of if he could come back against Asta in the lower bracket of CI6. Stranger things have happened, but that is a tall, tall task. That is a hard ask of anybody. Is Arctic up for that task? Let's go one game at a time, see if he can even get us to a game 3. Arctic and Asta, game 2 is here. Arctic's on the bottom, Asta's on the top. Switched up leads for both. T-Tar and Salamence this time. And Asta's comfy, Arctic is not. It's a turn 1 Toxic from Salamence. And of course he has lefties, so some kind of Wishmance it looks like, certainly with Protect. So Protect, Wish, Toxic, and whatever you want. Flamethrower, Dragon Claw, those are the 2 most common ones, but it could be something else. Will-O-Wisp connects. And Hidden Power Flying, uninvested perhaps. That could also be the attacking move. Interesting. Could be a nice check to Fighting Mons, Heracross, Medicham, and such. HP Flying doesn't seem terrible. I'm open-minded here. Meta switches in, and it catches Tar. Good for Asta. Gets him a free mash, which is obviously not banded based on that roll, though he does get an attack raise. And it's going to connect with Scarm from Arctic, who's running a Moltres TSS. Asta with some kind of physical offense and or balance here is going to get the mag in on the Scarm, exactly what he's looking for. Scarm is at 100% and has a chance to survive, but the damage roll favors the Magneton, who is presumably holding Magnet, and down that goes. So Asta with the advantage now. There's also still the poison lingering from before, so certainly Asta ahead in this situation. Overheat coming down. So both of them low and suffering from residual damage, but Overheat even after the drop is going to be enough to kill Salamence. So we've got ourselves an even game at 5-5 with many unreveals. 3 for Asta, 2 for Arctic. Make that only 1 for Arctic as Flygon comes in on a Whiffed Protect turn from Asta. He's going to stay in and eat the Earthquake. Clearly a bulky meta based on the roles that we've seen it have offensively and how well we saw it take that Earthquake, and as we know it as Protect. So bulky meta here, trying to beat Flygon one-on-one, which it looks like it has an okay chance of doing, but he switches up here to Gyarados, gets Intimidate off, should Arctic stay in and go for Earthquake, which he did. That's going to be a complete whiff, and he takes more poison damage. Is that CB Gyarados? Yeah, not gaining lefties, and it does a big chunk to Blissey as well. That's a CB Gyra here. But is it about to get hit with a big pursuit on the way out? No, it is a physical tar for Arctic. Earthquake there on meta, gets him, but there's a Dougie follow-up, so it's actually double Trapper for Asta, which we haven't seen in quite some time. Kind of an older archetype, fallen out of favor. Magneton going to be the fodder to Moltres, and it is just Flamethrower. Down that goes. Asta wants to preserve his Dugtrio. So that leaves us briefly with Asta behind, but Arctic quickly has his Moltres faint, and we're back to even at 3-3. And again, the Gyra comes in on Earthquake, which is ideal. It is taking sand damage this whole time. And he goes for HP Flying because he didn't know that there was a resist in the back. As it turns out, the last poke is Arrow. There is, in fact, a Flying resist, and that makes this a little more complicated. Rock Slide doesn't kill there. And Asta still wants to preserve the Dugtrio. He lets the Gyra go. That must have been an over-prediction. He's going to be down to last lax here, which is almost certainly some kind of curse rest lax, as it basically always is on these double Trapper squads. And he's got a shot here. Now, granted, at any given time, he can get crit or flinched right out of this game. But unless Arctic finds something like that, a freeze from Bliss, a crit or a flinch from one of the physical attackers, unless he finds something like that, Asta actually has a very good chance to come back and win this game. And if he does win this game, that's going to be the end of the road for Arctic with a 2-0 victory for Asta. Aerodactyl might have some chances, but Flygon is on a very limited clock how many chances he's going to have to find that crit that he's looking for. The poison is really adding up, and the Lax is due to wake up on this turn. Earthquake again. Crit has still not come. And Lax is just going to body slam him down. So now Aerodactyl needs to get there. Crit or flinches necessary. Rock Slide, 22% and a flinch. Got a chance here with a crit or flinch again. Rock Slide, critical hit. Sends us just like that to Game 3. Looking like Asta had this in the bag, but Arctic took his chances. He knew what his outs were. He played for them, and the luck cooperated at the end. He gets the flinch, followed by the crit to take out the Lax and send us to a third game. That could have been the end for Arctic. Instead, we play on and go to a decisive Game 3, in which one of these players will continue on, and the other will be eliminated. Game 3, right now. Arctic bottom, Asta top for the final time. No gimmicks. T-Tower for both. Skarm in, and he's coming in on Earthquake, which is what you want for Asta. However, it is an immediate Dragon Dance as Spikes comes down. +1 Rock Slide, 47%. Does not find the crit or flinch that he would hope for. He gets roared away, and it is a Suicune as the second poke revealed for Arctic. Skarm Bliss for Asta in a game with his tournament on the line. 0% surprised to see that. Of course, he defaults to this when it is do or die. Can't blame him. Goes immediate Toxic and connects with the T-Tower. That's got to be good. And now Flygon comes in. Seeing a good amount of Flygon in this series. Hidden power there, only 20%, so that's got to be a pretty darn bulky Flygon. Or that was just HP Grass rather than HP Bug, but either way, it doesn't do a lot. Flygon going to go for Toxic here, connecting with Mence, so that's the second poke poison for Arctic, and he's going to protect. But instead, Claydol switches in. That's going to be now a third poke poisoned, and there is Rapid Spin. Arctic would be a happy man if he had an Aromatherapy or Heal Bell user in the back. So far, he has not shown anything that can learn those moves. Maybe, just maybe, last poke B or Bliss. That's what he's got to be hoping for here. There is Calm Mind and Earthquake, respectively. Only 23% on the EQ. And an immediate crit with Surf to get rid of the meta. Arctic catches a much-needed break there in a game where he feels blatantly behind. That is certainly going to help his case by immediately eliminating the meta there that he otherwise would not have. Who knows what Asta would have done on that turn? It could have just been a boom, so that could be the difference between the meta, or rather the Coon being alive or not. That could have been an absolutely huge turn, or it could have just been an Earthquake. We'll never know. As it stands, Arctic with the lead, 6-5. There are a bazillion status effects on the team for Arctic, but not anymore. Aromatherapy gets rid of all of those Toxics, and all of a sudden, Asta, who has seemingly been ahead all game, is behind. 6-5 edge for Arctic. The only thing Asta has going is he does have that one layer of spikes down, but all of a sudden this is way closer than it was. If anything, Arctic might be winning, and Asta, the veteran, cool under pressure, is going to need to play really well to get out of this. Moltres here, which has served him well throughout the series, and he's got Overheat again, which I'm a huge fan myself of the Overheat Moltres, but I don't know how good it's going to be this game. There's a Blissey and a Suicune on the other side. This might not be a great Moltres matchup, and it's kind of looking like it might be difficult for Asta to win, especially without the meta. What he could do otherwise is he could switch the meta in as the Blissey comes in. You go to Moltres, you prompt out the Bliss, you go meta. That could be very good. He could punch through that way, especially with spikes down. But now, with the meta no longer with us, this might be a hard game to win. Maybe T-Tar can punch through here. He's a special Tar. He gets a crunch here. A crit actually would have been enough there. Calm Mind as he stays in. That's bold. Not afraid of a crit or a grass attack or an electric attack. Man, bold play for Arctic, but he's going to eat the crunch and he's going to rest up. Skarm comes in for Asta. We have not seen the last move here. We don't know if it's Sleep Talk or Roar. If he has Sleep Talk, he's not using it, certainly indicating that he's a Roar Coon. Spikes number 2, And he roars him away at this point, prompting out the Rachi that we know has Thunder. And presumably an Ice attack, but we haven't actually seen that yet. He wishes and he gets roared away. Right now it's the Mence in line to take that wish, but that could change. He stays in Brick Breaks, totally fine taking the wish for himself. That's what he'll do, and he's going to eat a Toxic, which we know could be aromatherapied away in exchange. Here's the double. T-Tar gets Dragon Clawed. Kate, interesting. He knows there's a Brick Break on the other side, so he must have been thinking that Arctic was going to switch as well. And now Flygon and Coon find themselves staring each other down. Earthquake? Nope. Blissey? And they both switch yet again. Blissey and Doll now. Do we have a Nurse moment coming? No. Why Nurse moment when you can Rapid Spin? That'd be silly. Gotta get rid of those spikes. There's Ice Beam. And Moltres in on Rachi is a good play for Asta. The problem is, with the Blissey and the Coon on the other side, the Moltres can't really do anything. And there's a lot of switching here. Skarm and Coon now. No spikes to speak of. Surf and spikes, sure, but we know there's a spinner on the other side and no Ghost for Asta to block it. It seems like a good matchup for Arctic, and it's even more difficult with the meta down. Everything that Asta's trying to do, Arctic has the answer for. He's not afraid of the Flygon. He's not afraid of the Moltres, just by the way the team is structured. He has the Aroma Bliss to negate all those Toxics on the other side for Asta. Coon seems like a difficult poke for Asta in the long run. It definitely seems like a good team v team matchup for Arctic, and obviously that crit on the meta did not help Asta's case. I have a ton of faith in Asta. He's the man. He's one of the greatest ADV players ever. But looking at this game completely, honestly, objectively, neutrally, as of this moment, outside looking in, I think Arctic's going to win. It seems, I mean, Asta can outplay anything and get there, but it really, this is a difficult game. I mean, maybe instead of Arctic proving how good he is, maybe it's time for Asta to step up and remind us all how good he is. It would really take a hell of a player to get out of this. Team v team, this just seems so bad. Maybe Asta, this would take forever, can eventually grind him down with Toxics and with a lot of stalling, but that would require going through all 8 aromatherapies on the other side from the Bliss and then repoisoning things. And that might be the best out for Asta. There he gives himself an opportunity for a crit or a freeze. So Asta's certainly giving himself chances. He went for it right there. How devastating would it have been had he crit the doll? All of a sudden, his Skarm can start spiking up. Arctic can't remove it. Asta has a very viable and realistic way to win. So there are paths here where Asta can get back in it. And I don't necessarily love the chances that Arctic is allowing Asta to have. Like I said, that was very risky with the doll. You basically lose the game if the doll gets crit or frozen there. But it does not occur, and like I said, as it stands, Arctic is ahead. Asta far from out of it. He can win a very, very long game, or he can snipe that doll eventually and win with spikes. Here's Doll sneaking in. And unfortunately for Asta, a lot of that progress is going to be undone. Doll is almost completely healthy now after Wish and Lefties, up to 95%. He's going to have to work a long time to chip that back down again. However, on the other side, his Spiker has gotten healthy as well with all those turns of Protect and Lefties. It's back up to 65%. We could be in for a long one here. The other 2 games were not big marathons. This one very well might go a little bit longer. It is certainly looking that way. Arctic, even though he has a good team matchup, the one thing that I really don't like about his team and why I personally don't like this style of team is that he does not have a lot of ways to actually win the game. It's the Coon and the Rachi only, and his team as a whole is very passive and reactive. I'm not saying that it's bad, it's just not my jam. And it's going to very often lead to games like this that are going to go long. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with long. Whatever wins, wins in CALLOUS Invitational. But for purposes of this game and purposes of this matchup, we're probably in for a longer one. Blissey comes in on the Suicune here. Doubling back to Rachi. And Asta's going to switch as well. Opportunity with the Moltres. which he now goes back to Skarm and gets that in on Bliss. Sure, so you can get some spikes down, but the issue remains, what do you do about the healthy Doll? Arctic taking the opportunity to get some chip on Skarm, undo some of that lefty's recovery, gets him to 47%, and Bliss is going to soft boiled up for lack of anything better to do. Checking on some PP of important moves, there are 6 overheats left, there's only 8 to begin with, and then aromatherapy, there's also 6 for Arctic. Brick Break there on Bliss and S-Toss, respectively. T-Tar would live another one of those, but Bliss would also live a non-crit. Not going to risk it, though. Out of the way. And Asta not able to make the prediction there and go for the crunch and give himself a chance to get a Specs drop or a crit or what have you. He switches Moltres into Surf. Arctic has been very aggressive with the Coon. There have been plenty of times where I thought that he should rest, where he simply attacks instead. But now Asta catches a little bit of a break. That overheat is relevant there. The crit would not, he would not have killed without the crit, but he finds it and he kills the Salamence through the resistance with the critical hit. So a little bit of hacks back. The only knockouts we've had in this game for both players have come via critical hits. So we've got ourselves a 5-5 after Meta died to a crit and Salamence died to a crit. And that's going to speed us up a little bit. But the Salamence, even though it definitely plays an important role for Arctic's team, is not as important in this particular matchup. It'll largely check fighting mons and things like that, but Asta doesn't have those, so I don't think the Mence was that exciting in this matchup. Nevertheless, progress is progress, and here we are. Asta's managed to get Skarm healthy again, 76%. Toxic and Rapid Spin, sure. He will eventually force an aromatherapy with that. And there's no reason to not spike up again, which is exactly what he's going to do. Blissy's going to come in knowing it's going to be a spike turn, and there's no reason not to soft-boiled here, which is what Arctic's going to do. In the meantime, there are 2 layers down for Asta, and Arctic has to decide if just that poison is worthy of an aromatherapy, and he decides that it is. Doll is no longer poisoned, but all 3 layers are down. Good roar there for Asta, though that's not the poke that he would have wanted to roar out since we know it is Thunder. He's going to stay in and take that. I don't know that I love that. And it's going to connect and paralyze him. I don't know about that decision. I don't know that I would have allowed that to happen. I mean, it's unlucky that it happens to be that got roared out, but I still don't think he should have allowed the Skarm to take the damage and the para being the more important of the two. But we'll see if it comes back to bite him or not. He does land Toxic yet again on Claydol, which someday in the future, in theory, will force aromatherapy. Skarm fails to full para that whole time, but he eats yet another Thunder, and again he gets his move off through para, so he has not once been stopped in his track by full para. Here's Flygon, comes in on Rock Slide, no problem, 18%. There is the 1 layer spikes down as T-Tar switches in on Doll. Interesting. Does he outspeed him here? Almost certainly not, but he can threaten him with Crunch. And Arctic does go straight for EQ just in case T-Tar got Q'd, but he did not and has to switch to Moltres here. Now he's back to Tar, had a Rapid Spin come down, which it didn't. Ends up with Tar on Bliss, more lefties recovery being gained for Asta. Now Coon comes in, and it does not care whatsoever about that Brick Break. 13% is all we're going to get out of that. There's CM for Coon as Blissey comes in to check it. We are approaching turn 100 here in what is by far the longest game of the 3. And here comes a T-Bolt, which I believe it hadn't shown before. Oh man, I'm way off. It has shown it plenty of times. I guess I must have been talking through it. But the T-Bolt is not that exciting in this matchup. It's only the Coon that really cares. Though he could randomly paralyze the T-Tar or something, but even that is not that exciting because we know there's Aroma on the other side. Asta's trying to freeze the Rachi here, continuously Ice Beaming. The damage is nothing. It's not even negating lefties. But he's trying to find a freeze as Arctic continuously CMs up. And it has not come yet. Got 10 Ice Beams left. This could get really dangerous if he doesn't find the freeze soon. Here he is again. Nope. Rachi's pretty boosted. This could get out of hand. Ice Beam again. Asta's not finding it. This Rachi could be the end for Asta. He really needs to get there sooner rather than later. And it's last move Psychic. Thunder Psychic. No ice attack there. Okay. Old set. Not a set I'm particularly fond of, especially with no Dugtrio to remove the T-Tower on the other side, but too late for T-Tower to switch in now, and Ice Beam doesn't freeze again. Psychic ends the day for Skarm, and now Asta is going to have to try to overheat crit through all of this. And he does not. This is looking like the end. T-Tower now is going to have to dodge Thunder, which can happen, and does not happen. And that's it. Asta says GG, and that's that. Never deals with the very boosted Rachi. Man, what a tournament we have had so far. Upsets everywhere, and new young guys beating the old guys left and right. Who would have imagined a world, who would have imagined a CALLOUS Invitational 6 in which ABR, Starmaster, Astamatitos, Roro, M-Dragon, I'm sure there's others that I'm forgetting, but all of those guys are out by round 3. By round 3! It's crazy. But here we are, round 3, and so many of those guys that you predicted to win, those guys that have made money in these tournaments before, these guys that are so consistent in these tournaments in the past, they're all out. And Arctic showing that he deserves to be here. Despite the weird path to get here in the first place, he is now 2-1 in the main event, defeating one of the ADV all-time greats in Astamatitos, and he is going to live to fight another day. How far can he go? He is not done yet. Yet another shocking outcome in CALLOUS Invitational 6. It has been a wild tour. You guys cannot afford to miss a single match because you really never know what is going to happen. It has been that kind of tournament. If you enjoyed this video, and if you've been enjoying the tournament as a whole, I would appreciate if you take literal actual 1 second or less of your time to click the like button. Appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next video.